Hello and welcome to our first live stream here. If you're watching us either on the creationspast.com or on YouTube on the Creations Past channel, my name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, I'm Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
And today we are starting our new series called The Church of the Oak. And what we're going to be doing in this is offering a place for meditation, reflection, and conversation so that we can kind of process everything that is going on in the world. So we're going to get together, have some meditation, have a bit of a chat, a bit more meditation, a bit more of a chat, and then go out hopefully feeling more built up and built up better to face everything that's going on in the world right now. So I would oh, there's so much going on right now. But I would like to say hello to Mr. Brindlesides, who has reminded us that this is apparently Moroccan New Year. And yes, it is New Year's somewhere everywhere. We actually have Lunar New Year coming up soon. So everything is always changing. And yeah, let's go. All right. So we are going to be beginning with what we call our encircling prayer. The encircling prayer is a traditional mode where we are going to first call in the archangels and the Shekinah, the presence of God, to be amongst us. Then we are going to call into the circle those things that we want to have near, close to us, or in our lives. And we are going to cast out from the circle those things that we want to be ever so far away. You can feel free in the chat to name things specifically, though I will say in the simplest way, we are trying to be an all ages stream, so be respectful to other people that are seeing your comments, and also do not overshare, because this is on the internet, and what is on the internet lives forever. So take a moment and kind of settle in your seat, or stand up, or however you feel most comfortable. Get yourself into a decent posture and take a slow, simple breath. In and out. In and out. In and out. May the Archangel Michael stand to our right. May the Archangel Gabriel stand to our left. May the Archangel Uriel stand before us, and may the Archangel Raphael stand behind us. And may the Shekinah, the glorious presence of God, ever be above us, enfolding us in her wings, so that she might guide us and guard us all the days of our lives. And as we come together in this circle, we invite certain things to join us. They may be our ancestors. They may be things that we just need in our lives. Into this circle, I call peace, clarity of thought, and clear vision, so that we might see the right path to walk.
Into the circle I call patience.
From the circle we send and we say, be far from me, strife and violence, the rage that clouds the mind, and the ignorance that has led us to the place that we are today.
I send rumination far away.
Amen. So now that we have gathered in our circle, we want to be honest and really kind of name where the world is. Where are we in things right now? Now, this is not a Catholic podcast, and only one of the two of us on screen has any connection to Catholicism. I was practicing Catholic for many years. But not that long ago, just recently, Pope Leo called together ambassadors from around the world and gave what he called the State of the World address. And he said a lot of very powerful and good things in here. And I highly recommend you watch it if you haven't seen the whole thing. But there was one part in particular that we felt that we should talk about, because it's what I think both Brian and I see as the biggest problem right now. So we're going to play a quick clip of that portion from Pope Leo's address, and then we're going to talk about it.
At the same time, in order to engage in dialogue, there needs to be agreement on the words and concepts that are used. Rediscovering the meaning of words is perhaps one of the primary challenges of our time. When words lose their connection to reality, and reality itself becomes debatable and ultimately incommunicable, we become like the two people to whom St. Augustine refers, who are forced to stay together without either of them knowing the other's language. He observes that, I quote, "Dumb animals, even those of different species, understand each other more easily than these two individuals. For even though they are both human beings, their common nature is no help to friendliness when they are prevented by diversity of language from conveying their sentiments to one another, so that a man would more readily converse with his dog than with a foreigner." End of quote.
And that really, I feel like, encapsulates the period we're living in right now. It really does feel like this moment in time where we have lost the ability to talk to each other. Now, I want to say right up front, I am not saying that we should do this instead of any protest action or any mutual aid or support. I think we should be doing all of that. But I don't think we're going to get to a healthy and stable other side if we can't remember how to talk to each other.
Communication is so essential. I thought that was very poignant that even animals can communicate with each other. And that means when we're failing to communicate, we're lesser than even the animals around us. Not to try to make a hierarchy, but a lot of people like to think, especially the ones that are failing in communication so often, like to think of themselves as being, having dominance over the world and, put in charge of everything. And it's like,
And it's a real struggle for us because we often forget that we are animals. We have this ability to empathize with other creatures in the same way other creatures have to empathize with themselves. This, at its root, at its core, is very powerful in how we can communicate with each other. I've been saying in a lot of the essays that I've been writing and putting up over at creationspast.com or on the Creations Past podcast, how this loss of communication, this desire that we have to live in our anger and rage and demonize and turn our opponents into monsters, is preventing us from being able to actually get the work done. Now, I'm not taking away from the evil that's being done right now. I'm not taking away from the very problematic world that we're living in. We need to be out there. We need to be documenting and standing in the way and trying to end all of the horrible things that are going on. And the only reason I'm being vague is we would be here for the rest of our time together if I tried to list things, because there's just so much of it right now.
Well, that othering, that making an opponent of, I think people can say these words, but they don't really think it through, and realizing you are making an opponent. You're literally creating an opposition in the moment. Because yes, you have to deal in the moment with the wrong that's happening right then and there. But if you make the other party an enemy, now you're moving them from an opposition in the moment to a permanent place where they're always the enemy. And now you've just created a lifelong enemy. It's not something anybody wants.
We did an entire episode about this over a year ago, about this concept that is called the Sitra Achra. It's the other side. That when we start dividing those lines up and saying you're either on this side or the other side, there's always going to be another side, because that line will just shift and find someone over there. If we're going to actually get through what we're going through, we have to not replicate the mistakes that we made during the civil rights movement and the queer rights movement and the feminist movement. And I don't think a lot of people want to do that soul searching within. We operated out of this very liberal democracy way of thinking that if we just legislate morality, everything will be better. It's the same kind of mindset that those that we currently deem on the other side weaponize against us. Well, if we just bring about integration, if we just bring about an end of Jim Crow, if we just bring about, voting rights and marriage equality and all of these things, it'll just sort itself out. We want to leave that part up to the future to figure out. And the problem is, it doesn't sort itself out. We have to do the work of sorting it out. And that starts now while we're still engaged in the struggle. That starts now while we're in the fight. That doesn't mean we have to sit back and go, well, there's good in everyone, so we'll just hope that they wake up. I will talk them out of this. We still have to be out there. We have to be doing everything that we can within our field of control to make change. So lawyers are suing, and judges are ruling, and people are marching and protesting and filming and documenting, and people are using their skills. That's all valuable. But in doing that, if we otherize people too much, the division is just going to remain and fester and spring back up again. What we're seeing right now is just all of that repressed rage and anger from the civil rights movement, the feminist movement, and the queer rights movement coalescing, joining arms and arm in arm, and rising up together. We didn't heal the wound, we let it get worse. Now, this can start in several different ways. We can start at the most basic level, and this is so hard to do. And please don't think that I'm saying that this is easy. I struggle with this. And I'm not talking about the people in power. That's a whole other conversation. I'm talking about the person that we meet on the street who still supports what's going on. Understanding that they are working from a good impulse. They are working from a place within themselves that says, this is what I have been convinced and believe will make people safer, maybe more free, or in some way will reduce harm. Mustache twirling villains don't really exist in the really real world, though they do exist. Roy Cohn was a mustache twirling villain. Not saying there aren't any of them, but most people that are doing harm either don't see it or convince themselves that it is a necessary evil that will pass, and then everything will be fine again. They are operating out of a place that they in themselves believe is good. And that's the part we need to talk to. Not the part that we disagree with that's doing the wrong thing, but the part that is actually aligned with us, that believes it is doing the right thing, but in the wrong way.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it is definitely tricky to do, but it comes back to also keeping in mind a lot of those basics. Most people want to live a good life. How that's defined is, becomes very individualistic, but they want to live a good life. Like, even if you listen to the current administration and the stuff that they're saying, they're wanting to protect, they're wanting to ensure they have jobs and that they can live a good life and have, housings and safe community. And this is all the space they're working out of. It's just they're doing it in terrible ways. And if we can get them to see, like, that good life extends to everybody in the community, that it isn't just them, but it's the people that they're busting heads in on. Like, they wouldn't like it if somebody was kicking their door in trying to grab up, their groundskeeper or whatever.
The insight a lot of these people are missing is what comes naturally to some of us and what others of us have learned, that what harms one of us hurts all of us. That letting someone starve when we can feed them is a way to drive people to doing things that they would not ordinarily do. Making people afraid when they don't need to be afraid causes people to take actions that they wouldn't normally take. And it's hard because if we are wanting to actually make real change, have to be working on two fronts simultaneously. And that is always hard. Yes, we have to be stopping and mitigating the harm as best as we can and making sure it can never happen again. But we cannot isolate and turn off all those on the other side so that they just sit and fester and it springs back up. I was raised in white nationalist evangelicalism. That is the waters that birthed me. And it took me decades to get out of it. And I'm sure I still have vestiges of it within me. When I was there, we didn't see ourselves as doing anything bad. We were helping people. They don't understand how they're wrong. We're just trying to help them. There was a honest good-heartedness at the root of it, but it was planned. Those like me who were raised in it are not surprised by what's happening now. This doesn't surprise me because we were planning this when I was a kid in the 70s, in the 80s, and in the 90s. We were planning this. We were organizing for this. We were setting the groundwork for this. We all knew what the eventual end game was, and it's here now. And when those of us who came out in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s started ringing the alarm bells and trying to get people to see the danger, it sounds so overblown. It sounded like a conspiracy theory that since the rise of the moral majority and the organizations first started coming together, since the proclamation of the Seven Mountains Mandate and all of that, there has been a concerted, organized effort to subvert the nation to follow a very strict, rigid, limiting way of thinking and to bring about an authoritarian state to do it. It sounded like a conspiracy theory until it happened.
Yeah.
And as somebody who grew up in that, it's so important for me to get people to understand people didn't give up on me. And that's why I'm on, I hate to use the words this side now, but on this side now. Because people didn't give up on me. They continued having those conversations with me.
a way I like to look at it is, if you can imagine yourself, you're standing there and the person in opposition is standing in front of you, and you want them to move, in your direction, but you're standing in front of them. So if you're yelling at them, they cannot move forward because you block their path. And all you're doing is yelling at them, calling them dumb, telling them they need to see the situation clearly. You're still blocking their path. First thing you have to do is step out of the way and make sure the path is clear. Then you have to look and see, do they have legs? Can they walk? Do they have the ability to even move forward, or do they need help to move forward? Because once you see that, you can looking at it like that helps to understand some of these subtle nuances that go into it, because it's so tempting. It's so easy to be just want to yell how dumb are you? Why can't you see this? Well, if they could see it, they would have already seen it. Once again, if they could have walked forward, they would have done that. But you got to get out of the way first. You can't block the path, or they will forever be in blocking the path for you as well.
And it really goes back to what Pope Leo was saying about the language here. We are speaking different languages. The words that we use mean something different to them. That is again, effort on their part. I remember going to apologetics classes and Wednesday worship services and Wednesday Bible study and Sunday morning and Sunday evening Bible study, where we would literally talk about what is a worldview? How is a worldview constructed? What do these words by the bad people mean? We were taught, we were indoctrinated into understanding all of these words differently. They don't think that liberty is the ability to be free. It's the system that allows for liberty. So when you think of liberty as the system of control that gives you your freedom, you don't see the problems with the system of control. If true liberation is going to come, we have to find ways to agree on language again. Like Pope Leo said in that quote from Augustine that we started off with, we are more willing to talk to our dogs and cats and other pets, to random birds in a tree, than we are to one another when we see each other on the other side of things. And that breakdown of dialogue is what the truly bad actors need to stay entrenched in power. Because I know to us, this feels so obvious. Everything that we're seeing right now feels so visceral and so obvious. I can tell you, they're not seeing what we're seeing. They're getting a curated, manicured stream of information coming in. And this is not because of X or TikTok or YouTube or Rumble or any of these new platforms. Back in the 80s, we had, and we still have today, our CBNs, our Trinity broadcast networks. We had these other places. Now they've got the Newsmax and everything else. These curated sources that are only spoon feeding us what works within the worldview that they want to propagate. So we have to find ways around. We have to find ways through. And the easiest part of this is through conversation. And that's hard. That's really, really hard. I have worked really, really hard to maintain even a modicum of a relationship with one of my cousins that is extremely strained right now, just to be able to be a voice in the room. And it has had some moderating effects on him.
And that's where patience come in. That's why I like the whole talk about, how we give that patience when we're talking with our dog or with our cat or one of the other animals in our lives. And we don't extend the very same patience to the humans. Because we have that patience and we take that moment to stare at the dog. We give the dog a command, like, come over here. And the dog looks at us like, and we know, okay, the dog didn't understand what I just said. And we have the patience to go, hey, come on over. We make a gesture. We try again, and we try again to do this communication. We don't just turn at the dog and yell and call it stupid and why can't it understand? that we're being invaded or whatever. Like, we don't do that stuff. Like, but we find that perfectly acceptable with fellow humans, and it takes patience.
And it's a different kind of patience. I really want to make this clear, because there are some people out there like your Ezra Kleins, who I think is even waking up on this, but I'm not sure, who are trying to say that this kind of patience we should have towards everything. And that is not what we're talking about. That is not what we're talking about at all. And I hope that we've made that clear. But, and I would love to know what you all think about this. But the kind of patience that we're talking about is not for the system that is doing the harm. That harm has to stop. It needs to stop now, today, as quickly as possible. I'm talking about patience with the people that are propping that system up, not necessarily the people who are implementing it. That's the difference. We have to bring down the system as quickly and as efficiently as we can, without doing anything that they can use to justify further harm. And that's a hard path in and of itself. But if we're going to prevent this from happening again, which is why this feels so cyclical, because it keeps happening. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. For those of us who are older, like Brian and I, this doesn't feel all that different from the George W. Bush administration. I remember the protests. I remember the fights, the arguments, we've never been this divided as a country before. I remember troops being sent in and threats being made. I remember people getting killed in the streets. I remember American citizens being harmed. I remember back into the Reagan administration where all of this was happening then. It's cyclical. And the reason it's cyclical is we're dealing with the symptom. The symptom, which, yes, we need to treat. We need to stop the pain. We need to stop that surface level. And that's what the protests and the lawsuits and trying to get and the voting and the getting Congress on board and all of that. That's what all of that side of things is for. The boycotts, the walkouts, all of that. But we can't keep ignoring the disease, the rot at the core of this. And that is that we've allowed too many people to isolate and separate themselves. And notice the important term there, separate themselves. We can't just force ourselves into their communities. We can't just go in and say, now everyone needs to teach this curriculum. We can't just go in and impose, because we tried that. That was the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they created a whole parallel school system. I know, I was part of it. I went to Baptist school. I remember those days. I remember as part of my school having to go and watch a movie about how everyone is going to hell, where they showed us video of people being burned alive so that we would be so terrified that we wouldn't do the wrong thing and that we would want to convert other people. They created their own schools. So it's not going to just happen because we fixed the curriculum in school or we've made the right policy decisions. This is going to have to happen in the really hard work and down in the trenches where we are talking to each other one-on-one and getting people to wake up and understand. We can see how this worked with the queer movement. The more people realized that they had an LGBTQ plus person in their family, the less likely they were to be radicalized against them. We're seeing this now as more trans people are becoming visible and more people are starting to realize, oh, wait, this affects me? Oh, wait, now maybe I should really think about this. But there aren't enough trans people, queer people, Black people to go around. And it's unfair to put the work on any minority to have to do that. We need to be talking to those around us in our circles and finding ways to get them to see through this us versus them. We make enough food in the world to feed everyone. We choose not to do that so it'll be more profitable. We have ways to generate enough power for everyone. We have enough homes to house everyone now, but it's more profitable for those houses to be empty, for those homes to be empty, than to house everyone. We have so many of the solutions to these big what feel like intractable, impossible problems now. Getting the word out, spreading the word, making sure people see past this lie of scarcity and understand that we can dream a better world. The world that we are living in now came into being in the aftermath of the Civil War. Before that, we did not have wage labor as the main mode of operating in this country. This idea that you would go to work, clock in, and do so many hours for so many wages, that was a new idea. And if you go back and actually read Lincoln, Lincoln was terrified of this idea and thought it was a huge and terrible mistake. Because it was starting to happen back then. So that's only a couple hundred years back. That's not that far ago. That's not that long ago. A lot of the ideas that we have, this idea of the nuclear family, arose in the 50s. It's new. It's recent.
Even the housing thing is new and recent. There was a big cultural push to break up the family, where before you would have multiple generations living in a household together, and you could sell more houses if you split the parents up from the children. Now you've sold more houses. Each child is another house sold, and
to break up the cities.
Yeah.
And so we have more suburban houses being built and more sprawl and more spread out and more fences and yards to keep people apart. It's not an easy thing to do. But we can see the solutions as long as we keep at least the possibility open of talking to people in dialogue. But again, that does not mean that we do not stand up to and face the systems that are doing harm now. That has to be stopped immediately. I'm talking about the long work that also needs to be started now. Because if we don't start it now, we will isolate too many of those people and they will become unreachable and the cycle will repeat again. And frankly, this is the third or fourth time I've lived through this. Depending on if we want to count the first Trump administration as having actually ended, because I feel like it just kind of stretched through to now. That general era. So it depends on how you want to count it. But I am tired of the cycle repeating, and I want the cycle itself to end. I hope that it's giving you something to think about. I hope that is giving you something to kind of rest with. What I want us to do now is to take a moment and just sit with it. Now, this is a Christopagan service. So we are going to be using Christian language, as you've heard before. If those words don't resonate with you, when I say them, replace them with whatever works for you. But we're going to do something that we call the within, around, through meditation. This is a time for grounding. This is a good way to kind of root yourself into the ground. What we're going to be doing is with each breath, we're going to be feeling what's going on within us and looking for that light within. Then we're going to feel what's going on around us, what we feel in the room around us. And then with the next breath, we're going to look at what's going through us. That can be very literally in the intake of breath and the outtake of breath. This can be as literal as you need it to be, or as connected to whatever path that you walk. I'm going to start it by using the Christian language that is a part of our tradition. And again, like I said, feel free in your head to trade those words out for whatever means the most to you. But let's go within now. And for our first breath, we're just going to breathe. Breathe in and breathe out. And in the next breath, notice Christ within. That power that connection. Paul tells us that the Christ is the one that connects all things together. Whatever gives you a sense of connection, just feel that. Breathe it in. Feel that within you, your lungs expanding, and then out. And then Christ around us. What do we feel around us in the room? Is it too hot, too cold? Do we feel a flow of wind around us? Do we feel presence of spirit around us? What do we feel? Breathe in. Feel what's happening around you. Breathe out. And now we're going to look at what's flowing through us. Whether it's the breath that's flowing through us, the thoughts that are currently happening in our minds. We're just noticing. We're just taking note. We're not trying to change anything. We're not listing things down. So we breathe in. And notice what's going through as we breathe out. And again, Christ within. Breathe in and out. Christ around. Breathe in and out. Christ through. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, within. Breathe out, around. Breathe in, through. Within. Around. Through. Now, on your next breath, reconnect with your body. Feel yourself fully where you are, in the place that you are, in the time that you are. And carry with you all that you have seen that is happening within you, around you, and through you. All right, how are we feeling?
Feeling good?
Now that we have drawn in, now that we have centered ourselves and rooted ourselves, just for a few minutes, I want us to think about what we are going to do going forward. What comes next? If you agree with any of the things that we have said, just take a moment in this grounded, rooted place and think of just one thing. You don't have to make out a whole plan or an agenda, but just one thing that you can practically do. One thing, maybe send a postcard to someone you haven't talked to in a long time. People are always amazed when they get mail. And it's an interesting way to start a conversation. Maybe somebody you haven't visited or called in a while. Maybe there's an event happening in your town or neighborhood that you've been thinking about going to, that you now feel even stronger about going to it. Maybe you notice something within yourself that you need to work on. An anger, a rage, a sense of fear. All of that is okay. Our goal right now is just to think of one thing that we can take with us as we go forward. For me, one of the things that I'm going to be continuing to work on is moderating my speech. Anybody who knows me in the really real world knows that I have, ever since I was a child, I've been very quick-tempered. And I have learned tools and mechanisms that I can use to try to keep myself calm. And one of the ways that I am doing this, and I'm really going to try to be better at enforcing this going forward, is whenever I see something online that I want to have a quick and dirty reaction to, I would have stop, breathe, center myself, and make sure, consider, and be careful and clear that I actually do want to respond to it, and that what I am saying comes from me and not from the reaction. Got a little sloppy with that lately.
Yeah, to have that patience to not want to just skip ahead when interacting with others, to have the patience to take the time to see where they are at, so I can speak to them there, rather than assuming the language is all the same and that they're already where I'm at.
Now, you don't have to tell us what you're going to be working on, but you're always free in chat, because somebody might be inspired by what you're working on. But never share more than you feel comfortable sharing. As we are coming to the end of our time together today, I want to thank those of you who came. This is something we have been dreaming about doing for a long time, and we found ourselves waiting for the right time to do it. And then we realized there's no right time. We just have to do it. We have to get started. We're going to be doing this every week on Wednesdays, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And you can do the math to find your local time. We are going to be doing this both at creationspast.com and over on YouTube. You can follow us in either place. If you follow us on at Creations Past, you'll get an email notification every time we schedule a live and a notification when we go live. That's a bit more reliable than YouTube. And we're also going to try to do these for certain special occasions, because I want this to be a community not just of action and a place where we are coping with our fear, worry, and doubt, but a place of celebration. So if you want to, our next live stream is going to be Sunday, and it's just going to be me. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday for the new moon, which every new moon in our tradition is dedicated to the Shekhinah, the glorious presence of God. And so we are going to be welcoming her into our lives and just taking some time to be with her and with each other, following a very similar pattern and flow to what we did today. And I invite you to join us then. We're also going to be here next Wednesday with another topic. You can always share topics with us either on Blue Sky or in the comments here on YouTube or on creationspast.com. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. It really does mean a lot, and hopefully we can build a strong community together. And if you want to continue these conversations afterwards, over on creationspast.com, you can click on the chat there and have conversations with us directly there. Also over on YouTube, in the community section, you can in the community tab. You can talk to us there as well. I think that's all the things that I was meant to say.
Yep.
As we are heading out, I just want to leave you with one simple blessing. May the spirit of life that is ever flowing within us guide us in strength and courage, opening our eyes so that we may see what is actually before us and the path that we are to walk. May we not take on any burdens that are not ours to bear, and may we find moments of delight and wonder and joy within it. May we not forget to celebrate even the smallest of victories, because it is in these things that we build the power to carry on. Amen.
Amen.
Until next time, peace and light to you all.